Welcome, everyone, to show number 6 of Gazette Sports Chat. I'm your host, Joe Gilloway, and we appreciate you taking the time to give us a look. Gazette Sports Chat is a branch of the online magazine Linglestown Gazette and is brought to you in part by our friends just down the road at Ted's Bar and Grill, 7300 Allentown Boulevard. Ted's is the #1 spot in the Lower Paxton and West Hanover areas for burgers, steaks, seafood, and award-winning chicken wings. There's a room at Ted's Bar and Grill. It's the main dining room. They call it the Rams Room. And if you're connected to Central Dauphin sports or even Central Dauphin High School in any way at all, go eat in the Rams Room. It's like a sort of a mini museum of current athletes, ex-athletes, photos of the state championship football team. I was just there last night, and we were actually, Romeo, the owner, was actually putting a new photo on the wall of a friend of mine, Alexis Hartwick, and she was actually Gazette Sports Chat's first guest, and we had 15 people there, friends and family of Alexis's. The service was great, the food was great, and it was just fun all being together there in the Rams Room, and a lot of CD people with us, and so congratulations also to Alexis for making the wall. And it was also $6 burger night last night. Every Thursday is $6 burger night. You can get any burger on the menu, but they always have a signature burger, and that's what I ordered. It was a prime rib au jus burger. Everything was the same except instead of the roast beef, it was a hamburger, and it was absolutely fabulous. They have great soups too. So go out and check out John and Romeo at Ted's Bar and Grill. Thank you. Our goal here at Gazette Sports Chat is to present athletes and others connected to the local sports community who've made a difference on and off the field of play. Where there is talent, Gazette Sports Chat will find it. And speaking of talent, our guests for show number 6 today are a father and daughter who were both Central Dauphin athletes, 30 years apart, I believe, if my math's correct. Both played at high levels. They were both basketball players, and the daughter was also a soccer player. Both Big 15 players, and we'll get in just briefly to what that means to be a Big 15 athlete. They played the same sport at the same position. There might have been a connection there that the daughter was able to excel at that position. And today they combine their talents and they work under the same roof, which is where we're filming from today. And I'll let them get into where we are and what they do here. So without any further ado, I'm going to bring in Mr. Scott Singer and his daughter, Gabby. Okay, well, welcome to the show. I got Scott Singer to my far right and his daughter, Gabby, right here in the middle. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having us.
I've referred to them in the past couple of months as one of the first families of Central Dauphin athletics. And what I mean by that is that they both played significant roles in athletics at Central Dauphin. And now today, what they do professionally is an extension of that, and they touch the lives of some of the athletes that are currently at Central Dauphin High School and other high schools too. But they've just sort of strung together, a few decades of being involved and contributing to CD sports. So I hope you don't mind that I tagged you with that nickname. And,
Not at all.
There's other schools that have the same sort of lineage. At Steel High, you have the Chisholms and the Deiblers and the Pettigrews, and I'm sure, Scott, you're familiar. And I sort of look at the Singers along the same lines as that. So let's start with this building, if you don't mind.
Yeah. No.
As a child, my favorite store in the world was Singer's Athletic Wear. I mean, there was not a close second. If I were to get a gift certificate, or if my mom had an extra $20 and wanted to buy something, or before Christmas, this is where I'd go. I mean, it was just so meaningful to me. And the funny thing is, I'd buy stuff out of the bins in the back, like the overruns or,
right.
or the mistakes.
Yep.
I'd walk around with a Brothers Brown jersey on 10 years old, and I didn't care because it was a new jersey for $5. How did Singer's Athletic Wear play into your life, Scott?
Yeah, so, growing up, that's all I really knew. We've always been a part of the local sports community. Sitting around a dinner table, we're always talking about, because they were doing the uniforms or whatever for this team, or that athlete happened to come in, and so that's just kind of how we grew up. Sports was just there always in that, and so of course coming up when I was younger kid, I'd have odd jobs and stuff like that I would do around here. And it's, so it's been great for me. It's been a blessing for me, really, to be able to, ultimately do a kind of back to the future kind of thing, and be able to bring in the next wave of how we can be a part of the sports community going forward, and, in Harrisburg, and move back into this building.
And 40, 50 years later, you have the same name out front on the sign.
Yeah.
So that's pretty neat.
That was really important to me, to get the name back on the building.
That's awesome. I walked into the building an hour or so ago, and I looked around. I said, "That's where I got my sneakers from." Back there in the right corner is where they had the overrun stuff that you could get for a few bucks.
Yep.
And used to buy my sanitary socks for baseball and my stirrups, and so I mean, it was the biggest deal there was as far as going to a store for me, and I just loved it.
And we're sitting here now in what had been our warehouse and our print shop, because we did all the lettering, all the printing, and everything like that was all in-house. It was a different day and time then,
Yeah, we're in the very back of the building, is what Scott was referring to. Let's talk about your experience at Central Dauphin, Scott. You were a 3-year starter.
Yep.
At point guard.
Yep.
And Big 15 in 1978.
Yes.
And what Big 15 is, it's the top 15 players. They do a boys and a girls in the entire area. It's not just the Harrisburg area. It extends down into Lancaster and Lebanon, Tri-Valley. It's I'm not sure about York, but it's a vast area. And to be one of the top 15 players in that whole area is quite an honor. What was it like playing high school basketball for you? I don't think Central Dauphin was a real overly competitive program at that time, or were they?
So my senior year, we actually played for the South Central League Championship. We lost.
I was wrong then.
Yeah, we lost. Well, you were kind of right and kind of wrong. When I got there as a sophomore, that was kind of the case. We were a middling kind of, certainly weren't horrible by any stretch of the imagination, but we weren't, a power. But by my senior year, we were one of the top teams in the area, and like I said, we lost a tightly contested overtime game to McDevitt for the South Central Championship game, which I can pretty much remember plays of that game to this day.
Why is it that we remember losses?
Yeah, so much
more than we
so
remember
much
wins?
more. Yeah, so
There's
much
something
more.
we probably have to talk to your brother about there, right?
Right.
You played for Skip Thorne, right?
I did.
Yeah, he was still around when I was at Central Dauphin 6 years later. So after high school, what happened? You went off to Gettysburg, I guess?
Yeah,
right?
so went off to Gettysburg College, played down there. Wasn't sure what freshman year was going to be, because they had won it was called the MAC, the MAC then, and they had won that the year prior. They had their returning point guard. Thought I might have to bide my time behind him, but actually by the fifth game of the year, I had been inserted into the starting lineup. By the 9th game of the year, I wound up hurting my back and going into a rehab hospital for like 2 weeks, and spent like 2 weeks in traction and everything, and then spent a year and a half trying to rehab and get back, and was just never able to really get back to that point where I could play at that high of a level.
Because at
anymore.
some point you just have to sort of throw in the towel and figure that it was fun while it lasted, and I'm probably not going to be able to get back physically to that point again, right?
Right. There came that time where I didn't know, when I was going through all that, whether or not each morning when I got up I was actually going to be able to get out of bed. Yeah. And it got to a point where you just say, like, hey, I have to be able to go about my daily, I got to get to classes, I got to do other things.
That life to live outside of basketball.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't like I had an NBA future ahead of me anyway. So, at some point in time you just have to say, hey, enough's enough.
Right. Then what'd you do? Just briefly, like between then and now.
So I wound up actually transferring out to Arizona State, and graduated from there with a finance degree. Worked in corporate America for a bunch of years. I worked in Rite Aid corporate. I worked for Merrill Lynch for a while, and then 14 years with what was then AMP and is now Tyco. And it was in that takeover process where our department basically, which was an assistance department or whatever, was basically everybody got let go, and that's what really started and embarked me on this new phase of my life.
Right. And right about that time, or soon after that, came Gabby, right? Is Gabby the older sister or the younger sister?
Gabby's the younger.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to move on to Gabby here. And I promised her that I would try to reel in the praise and the accolades, which is going to be hard to do because she doesn't really necessarily appreciate that a whole lot. And that's a breath of fresh air. She's just got a lot of humility. But I sat down last night, and I even got to the point where I called Scott. I said, boy, she accomplished so much over so little time. I don't even know how to present this or how to sort it out. And so I guess I'll just give you the Cliff's Notes version, which I promised Gabby I would do, and allow for you to talk about what was most meaningful to you or for you. At Central Dauphin, she was a 4-year starter on the basketball team, 2-time Big 15 award. So she doubles you up.
Yeah, one up on me there.
Twice as many times
Yeah.
she was a Big 15 as you. 3-time captain, and that you don't see that often. As a sophomore, junior, and senior, voted on by her teammates. That's a big deal. 2-time state champion in soccer, state champion in basketball. Your teams, right? Yeah. She scored over 1,000 points in basketball, and as a member was inducted in 2014 to the Central Dauphin Sports Hall of Fame. She was also, and I asked Dad what he was most proud of out of all that, and he said finalist for the Travers Award, which is an award given annually to student athletes with an emphasis on the student part, on the academic part. You just can't score lots of points or score lots of touchdowns and be eligible for the Travers Award. So that's another thing that Gabby earned before graduating. So with all that being said, what was most important to you as far as what you accomplished or what your teammates and you accomplished?
I would say my 3 state championships, including my 2 for soccer as well. Just because there's so much that goes into winning a state championship. As we know, my senior year, we had almost everybody back from our state championship team in 2008.
Right.
Everyone was kind of talking, expecting right from the beginning of the season, getting back to that state championship game. And we got knocked out and upset in the first round of the state playoffs. So it starts as soon as the season ends and your postseason and your preseason, every day in practice, all your regular season games and everything like that. It takes your star players, your role players, your benches, your coaches, your trainers, everybody's involved in that. So I think I would say all of my championship runs, just because, like I said, you have to be consistent, you have to be there, you have to show up every single day, and it's got to be from everybody.
Yeah, and you can't count your chickens, because I remember that. I thought, I'll be back here again next year to watch this team.
Yep.
And I remember the same thing, and I'll allude just once more to Steel High. They won in 92, and they had almost every player back on the 92 boys team, and they got knocked off by Glen Mills. So you don't know what other teams are out there, or if the stars are just going to line up. There's something that it takes, and you had it one year and not the following year.
It takes one bad night.
It takes one bad night or one really great night by the other team.
Yep.
What about the academic part to your high school career? You just shined academically too. So how did you fit both in together?
I've kind of always been pretty good with my time management and a list maker, a to-do list maker, and everything like that. To this day, I kind of schedule my day out by the minute. So I always know when I wake up in the morning what I need to get done. I have my schedule written out, so I get up and then that's what I do. And I just make sure when I go to bed at night, I have my checklist completed. And when you're a student athlete and you're signing up for the sports, like you've got to be at a certain point to play your sports. And then you also have, when you're competitive naturally, you also kind of are competitive in every aspect of your life. So I don't want to have a great game tonight and win tonight, but then lose to somebody in the classroom the next day. It's just, I was just naturally competitive, so I like to be good at what I do and succeed at what I do.
Right. And I'm just going to touch on one experience I had with you playing high school sports, and that was being at the Bryce Jordan Center. the night that you guys won it in '08. I guess it was probably March of '08, and it was a really good night for me because the Still High boys played Susquehanna Township in the first game. I got a chance to see Terrell Pryor up there. I guess they played the day before maybe, and then, of course, watching the Lady Rams, and I sat next to one of my high school teachers, Mrs. Thompson, Nancy Thompson. I sat down with her, hadn't seen her in decades. It was just a great night. She was one of my favorite teachers, but that was the kind of game that really required you and your teammates to show what level of mettle you had, right? I mean, you were down 8 at halftime, and that's not insurmountable, of course, but you hadn't really started to show Mount Lebanon that you were going to be able to, sort of fight off have any resistance to them.
Yeah, we actually just sat down and watched the game the other night to kind of refresh my memory. As you were saying earlier, you kind of remember the losses more than you do the wins.
Right.
And there's a lot of details that I was unsure of in that game. So we actually sat down and watched the DVD the other night. And we were even getting anxious and nervous as the game went on, and we were not looking good at all. We were not really playing well. We weren't clicking. And it was at least midway through the third quarter. I think we were down 10. I think we were down 10, middle of the third quarter.
Had actually started the third quarter with 4 straight turnovers to start this. This doesn't look good.
Yeah, you get the feeling like, oh my God, we got this far and drove this far, and I mean that's a terrible. You and your teammates didn't feel that way, obviously.
Yeah, and like I said, it actually was worse watching it the other night than it was even playing, because you're so in the moment when you're playing. You don't even have time to be nervous or anxious or get down. But I was reminded the other night of how late in the game it really was until we kind of turned it on, and
it was one for the ages.
And we turned it on, yeah.
It was really a game for the ages. Whether you're a Central Dauphin fan or not, to just watch the way that game transformed and everything just turned around 180 degrees. I mean, they were Gabby's high school teammate was Alyssa Thomas, who had a stellar career at Maryland and now plays in the WNBA. But they just collapsed on her all night, and they weren't going to let her beat them.
Yep. And they did.
Gabby Singer had to step up in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, they did a good job on her. Everything really she had for really the whole game was contested and had to be hard earned. We were watching, saying now, looking at it, she was missing shots that she would probably never miss in another game. But she was off as well in the first half, the first 3 quarters, really. But she kind of got going midway through that third quarter, late into that third quarter and early fourth quarter. That kind of really turned that corner for us and kind of got us. I think she pretty much brought us back to even. I know at one point it was tied up at 39, and then we kind of just finished the game out. I was able to.
Well, you kind of just made 8 free throws out of 8. That's how the game finished.
I airballed a 3 right around that time. It was I think we were just down 1 or 2 points. I airballed a 3, which I had blocked out of my memory because it caught me off guard the other night. And then I came back and shot the exact same shot and knocked it down to put us up by 3. And then we finished it out.
Then you won going away. I think you won by 7.
Yep, and I think
it was a 15-point. You were down 8 at halftime and you won by 7. So it was a 15-point switch there. Okay. Well, thanks for talking about that. That was the most important thing on my list because I just love being there and watching it.